My mom published her lifelong diary in which she writes about hating me as a child and not even loving me. My mother has fancied herself a writer for as long as I can remember. She has kept journals, dating back to junior high school, detailing everything from first periods to first boyfriends, etc. After numerous rejection letters from publishing houses, my mother decided to self-publish her book. She has been asking for family and friends to review her book, and after several months of avoiding the situation, my sister bought it. She was skimming through it while on the phone with me, and nearly immediately advised me against reading it. I did and was saddened, but not really surprised to learn that it's filled with not only memories of her growing up, but my first years as well. I am portrayed as both the light of her life and the bane of her existence. I am extra work. I hound her with my large vocabulary. I whine and I am rude, and that gets in the way of her loving me, and so much more. My mother has always been self-centered, and as a child, I endured a ton of emotional abuse from her. I left home early and our relationship is still strained. Even 20-something years later, her narcissistic tendencies have continued, impacting her relationships with her grandchildren. Reddit, I am just so done. I don't know how to respond to her request for a book review. She cries victim every time I've tried to tell her the truth about her behavior, and I'm painted as the bad seed. I am so used to her behavior that, while I was saddened by what she wrote, resignation was the overwhelming emotion. She's never going to change. There isn't anything I can do to make her realize she's not destined to be the next Elizabeth Gilbert, and I am done trying. She has the ear of my grandparents, who are also maligned in the book, and my stepdad, all of whom I love dearly. My relationships with them would suffer if I went no contact with my mother. TLDR. My mother wrote a bunch of hurtful and incorrect things about me in her book. Mother paints herself as victim when attacked. Don't know how to deal with her bullcrap. Help. Update 1. My mom is a writer. Last year, she self-published her book on Amazon, and basically it's a collection of journal entries from childhood to present. Book 1 was kid years until I was like 7 or 8. Book 1 detailed her abuse as a child, failed marriages, my birth, growing resentment over having to deal with husband and child. Lovely stuff. It was heartbreaking to read my mother's detailed descriptions of things she would do when she was upset. Withhold attention, affection, snap at me, yell, hide. I was never good enough for my mother, and her journal entries explained how she knew she was engaging in these hurtful behaviors, but did not stop. Unlike Volume 1, which was announced to high heaven, Mom, you're using a pseudonym, why are you announcing this to the world? This book was published with very little fanfare. In it, I go from a shitty 8-year-old to a shitty 20-year-old. Details are skewed, distorted, twisted, and sometimes they're outright lies. It's not just me. My mother attacks everyone in my family. Her parents, her husband that she is still married to, everyone. It's shocking how much hate and vitriol this woman has, and I'm the main target. She's deeply unhappy with her life and has never been satisfied, so she lashes out in misery. From detailing my lazy eye, to my bitterness over her divorce, to the fact that I was adopted, to glasses, everything is a weapon used against me. She attacked my kids, writing that I had them too young and too many. I have 3, and they are a curse. I love my kids more than anything and dedicated myself to being a better parent than she ever dreamed of being. On most days, I think I was successful. Other days, like today, I just feel awful. I was used to this when I lived with her, but I'm 40 now, mostly out of her reach. This is the lowest of blows. Every feeling I had when I was a kid, every insecurity and fear and feeling of worthlessness is just flooding back and I can't stand it. Confronting her, or even going no contact, will play into her status as a professional victim. If I write an unfavorable review, or even call her on her bullshit, she'd still play the victim. She doesn't cause problems. In her mind, they happen to her. Help. Reddit. Please. Relevant comments. Commenter. It doesn't sound like her presence in your life has any redeeming qualities. Go no contact and don't look back. It might fit into her narrative of victim, but she's going to do that regardless. You are trying to model healthy relationships for your children. You will never be able to do that 100% until you remove your mother from your life. I'm so sorry this happened. I also suggest therapy because this has to be a mindfudge. Commenter. I remember her original post, and I believe the consensus was that she should cut her mother off. But she hasn't followed that advice, and here she is coming back with the exact same problem again. She is looking for a magic wand to make her mother love her. As hard as it might be to swallow, that magic wand does not exist. Opie needs to get into therapy and come to terms with the fact that she will never have a positive relationship with her mother, and that it would be best for her and her children to never speak to her again. Opie, you're right. I think I've been chasing the idea that she can change, and with this latest volume, I realize it's impossible. I think it's time to go no contact. Thanks. Commenter. Are you identified by name in this book? Does the book contain factually incorrect statements about you that could damage your reputation and/or cause you demonstrable financial harm? If so, that's libel. Major grounds for a lawsuit if you suffer provable damages. Loss of job, loss of clients if you own a business, etc. Opie. She gave me a pseudonym as well. I thought about that, but other than damaging my reputation with friends of hers and our family, no one would know it's me. Update 2. Hi all. I posted this rant about my mother a few months back. I received some wonderful advice from many of you and wanted to give a little update. I've been no contact with her since about a week after that last post. I sent her a brief email detailing the why of it all and said I don't want any contact except in the case of extreme emergency. She never responded. She emailed me once, before Christmas, to let me know she was mailing something to my kids. I responded only with their email addresses and phone numbers so she could contact them directly. I don't expect to ever heal this rift. There is no magic wand to make her love me, and my mother will never recognize her own faults. I've done some therapy and a ton of soul searching and realized that's okay. I don't need the negative in my life. I'm better off without her. I spoke to my grandparents briefly about the situation, and they were so much more supportive than I could have hoped. My grandma gives me the occasional update, but she's as done as I am. So that's it. No drama. Nothing except for a closed chapter in my life and a lot less weight on my back. Much love, and thanks to you all. Relevant comments. Commenter. Why on earth would you give that woman your kids' contacts? She's only going to tell them all kinds of lies about you. I guarantee it. Opie. My kids are nearly grown, 17, 18, and 19. My mom lives in another state, and their contact with her was already limited. They have watched this unfold from the beginning, and while I didn't give them intimate details, they know enough. They've also had personal experience with her. My older daughter confided in her when she was going through a really difficult time. My mother swore to keep her secrets, then promptly turned around and told me everything. They're well aware of how she operates. Thank you for asking, though. Smiley face. Commenter. As someone who has also lost parents to their selfishness and lack of love for me, I feel you and am really sorry. You can't be loved by the heartless. Opie, you're right, you can't. But that's not your fault. I'm sorry you went through it too. Update 3. Hey Reddit, it's been a little while, and I honestly never thought I'd be back with another update, but here we are. So, remember how I cut my mother off completely? How I'd found peace in her absence? Even handed over the reins to my kids because they were grown enough to handle whatever nonsense she threw their way. Well, buckle up because the drama train didn't stop, it just took a detour. A few weeks ago, out of the blue, I got an email from my mother. Yes, her. She hadn't responded to my no-contact email. She hadn't tried to fight it or manipulate her way back into my life. Until now. And her email? It wasn't some heartfelt apology or acknowledgement of her actions. Oh no, that would be too much like accountability. Instead, it was a short, snippy message informing me that Book 3 was now live on Amazon. Apparently, this new volume was supposed to be her crowning achievement. According to her email, this book reveals the truth about everything our family, her childhood, my childhood, even the breakdown of our relationship. And Reddit, I swear I could feel my blood pressure spike just reading her words. She didn't ask me to read it this time, probably realizing by now that I wouldn't, but instead made sure to drop that line. Your children might be interested in hearing the real story. The real story? From her? You have to be kidding me. I ignored the email at first. I really tried. But curiosity got the better of me, and I asked my sister if she'd seen it. Well, guess what? She had not only seen it, but she had caved and bought the damn thing. And the contents? If you think books 1 and 2 were bad, this one is like gasoline on the fire. My mom has apparently taken up the hobby of creative embellishment. This time, she didn't just twist facts, she wrote a full-on revisionist history. In this new masterpiece, I'm not just the irritating, ungrateful daughter. I'm practically a villain. According to her, I was a rebellious teen who sabotaged her relationships. Funny, because I left home at 17 and never looked back. She even went so far as to claim that I've poisoned my kids against her, making me sound like some manipulative puppet master. Oh, and there's a whole section on my supposed resentment toward my own children because they've stolen my youth, her words, not mine. The worst part? She doesn't stop at me. She drags my grandparents through the mud too. The same grandparents who practically raised me when she was too busy finding herself to parent. According to my mother, they're the reason she's so damaged, and their overbearing presence ruined her ability to be a good mother. Are you kidding me? At this point, I felt like I was in some kind of fever dream. It was like she had written herself into a Lifetime movie, starring as the tragic heroine and turning the rest of us into one-dimensional villains. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or throw my laptop out the window. Here's the thing though, my kids, the ones she tried to warn in her email, they got wind of the book. I didn't tell them. They're just way too good at navigating the internet. My oldest daughter found it and read a few chapters, and she was livid. I've never seen her so angry. She sent my mom a scathing email, basically tearing her to shreds. I won't lie, it felt like a small victory to see my daughter stand up for me like that. But it also broke my heart because now she's been dragged into this never-ending mess. And as if that wasn't enough, my mother's little literary stunt is starting to ripple through the extended family. My aunt, who's barely mentioned in the book, but still, called me last week after reading it, saying she felt sick to her stomach. She couldn't believe my mother was airing out all this dirty laundry, half of which wasn't even true. She even asked if I was planning to sue my mother. Apparently, the idea is floating around that I should try to shut her down legally. But here's the kicker. Even if I did go that route, what would it accomplish? Sure, I could try to sue her for libel, but that would just feed her victim complex even more. She'd relish in the drama, turn it into her next book, claim I was trying to silence her truth. No, I'm not giving her the satisfaction. I've decided to let it go, as much as it hurts, and continue living my life. So here I am, Reddit, once again trying to find the balance between protecting my own mental health and staying strong for my kids. My mother can keep writing her distorted versions of reality, but she doesn't get to control my narrative anymore. I've been through enough therapy at this point to know that her words don't define me. But I'll be honest, I am exhausted. Every time I think I've shut the door on this chapter of my life, she manages to pry it back open with some new ridiculousness. And at this point, I'm just bracing for whatever the next installment in her saga might be. Maybe she'll write book 4 next year, where I'm the leader of an underground cult or something. Who knows? Update 4. About 2 weeks after I posted last, I got a frantic phone call from my aunt. Now, for context, my aunt is the definition of unflappable. She's been through some stuff: divorces, a hurricane that practically wiped out her house, you name it, but she has the emotional composure of a Buddhist monk. So, to hear her sound panicked, I knew something was seriously off. She said, "I just got a call from your mother's lawyer." I nearly choked on my coffee. A lawyer? For what? What on earth had my mother gotten herself into this time? Apparently, my mother is now suing me. Yes, you read that right. I'm being sued by my own mother. Forget this defamation. Her claim? That my public smear campaign, which, by the way, consists of me venting on Reddit, is damaging her reputation as an author and causing her to lose potential readers. She's alleging that I'm cyberbullying her, that I've created an online conspiracy to ruin her, and that my words are directly responsible for her poor book sales. I was speechless. I mean, I couldn't even form a coherent thought for a solid minute. My aunt was furious, telling me this was just another one of my mother's twisted ploys to get attention. She thought my mother had hit rock bottom with book 3, but apparently, she decided to start digging. I immediately called my sister, who had heard the news from our aunt as well. My sister, God bless her, was laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "She's suing you?" "You!" she gasped between fits of laughter. "For what? Being right?" But here's where it gets even better. My mother's case is based on the fact that I apparently leaked her real identity online by discussing her books on social media. Now, I don't know if she's completely lost it, or if she's banking on the fact that I don't have the energy to fight her, but she's claiming that me talking about my childhood, without even mentioning her name, somehow constitutes defamation. Of course, I lawyered up immediately. I'm not an idiot. My lawyer, bless his soul, took one look at the case and basically said it was laughable. But he did advise me to be cautious about what I post publicly from here on out, just to cover all my bases. So now, not only do I have to deal with the emotional aftermath of her continued attempts to sabotage my life, but I'm also being dragged into legal proceedings by my own mother. The sheer absurdity of the situation almost makes it funny almost. It's like I'm living in some sort of Kafkaesque nightmare where nothing makes sense, and reality is just slightly skewed in the most ridiculous way possible. I haven't even told my kids yet. They've been dealing with enough. My oldest is off to college next year, and she's been working hard to keep her grades up while balancing her job. My middle child is prepping for graduation, and my youngest is navigating their own teenage drama. The last thing they need is this extra weight on their shoulders. Here's where things take another wild turn. After I got served with the lawsuit, I received a very carefully worded email from my mother claiming she was forced into this by her lawyer, who convinced her that my slander was the reason for her financial troubles. She even had the nerve to say, "This isn't what I want, but you left me no choice." No choice? Are you serious? It's like she's playing out some melodrama in her head where she's the victim, the one who's been pushed to the edge by her cruel, heartless daughter. She's living in this fantasy where she's the tragic figure, and everyone else is out to get her. It's exhausting. And the worst part? She's convinced a few extended family members to side with her. I've had a couple of cousins reach out, asking why I'm attacking my own mother online and why I'm hurting her career. They've apparently bought into her narrative that I'm this evil mastermind pulling the strings behind the scenes, hellbent on ruining her life. I don't even know how to respond anymore. The sheer audacity of her behavior is mind-boggling, and the fact that she's now trying to legally come after me is just, well, it's on brand, I guess. The whole situation feels like a bad dream that I can't wake up from. I'm trying to move on, live my life, and focus on my kids and my career, but she keeps dragging me back into her twisted little world. And now that the legal system is involved, it's not just emotional warfare, it's actual warfare. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen next. The lawsuit is ongoing, and my lawyer is confident it won't go anywhere, but I'm bracing for more chaos. I've started therapy again because, honestly, my mental health can't take much more of this. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Being sued by my own mother because apparently I'm the root of all her problems. It's wild, it's ridiculous, and yet, somehow, it's all too real. I guess the next update will depend on how this lawsuit plays out. If you see me on some true crime documentary one day, just know that it all started with my mom's self-published book and spiraled from there. Update 5. Well, Reddit. This is it. The final chapter in the never-ending saga that is my life with my mother. It's almost hard to believe this is how it all ends. But here we are. So, the lawsuit? It never made it to court. My lawyer shut it down in a matter of weeks. Turns out, my mother had no case, just a desperate, last-ditch attempt to maintain her narrative of being the perpetual victim. Her legal team backed down quietly, but she of course sent me a furious email afterward, claiming that I had destroyed her. I didn't bother to respond. What was there left to say? But here's the twist. A few days after the lawsuit was dropped, I got another email, this time from one of my mother's oldest friends. She told me that my mother had collapsed suddenly and was hospitalized. It wasn't looking good. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling nothing. I thought maybe I'd feel relief or sadness or even anger, but instead, I felt this strange emptiness, like the storm had passed and left nothing in its wake but silence. My mother passed away a few days later. No dramatic final words, no last-minute reconciliations, no apologies. Just gone. She left behind another unfinished manuscript. I'm not reading it. I've already lived through enough of her fiction. So here we are. Reddit. The end. No grand epiphany, no healing closure, just an abrupt end to years of chaos.